Alrighty, ladies. Welcome to our Wednesday Q&A. There's been a couple of questions that I've been asked for today's Q&A, which I absolutely love some of the ones that are coming up. Like I put in my post yesterday, we are also going to talk to a couple of topics that are coming up for a lot of you this week and a lot of conversations we've had around rest, recovery, holidays, and injuries. So first and foremost, we need to dive straight in. So let's talk about rest and recovery. So when we allocate your programs, when we allocate your rest periods, there is a method to the madness, and there's a reason why we put the rest periods in that we do. Our body needs time to actually recover from what is happening during our training sessions so that you can get the most optimal energy out of your next set. Now, that is same said when you have a lot of things going on in your body. So when we talk about impact on your body or impact on your system, we talk about your nervous system and the impact that stresses can have on your nervous system. Now, training, even though training is a good stress, we like training is still a stress on the body. So if we're not honoring our rest, our recovery, and making sure that we have enough time in between our training sessions and in between each set to make sure that we are optimally recovering from the damage that we've just done to our muscle fibers, we don't actually get a whole lot of benefit out of it. Now, the same can be said if you're sick. Now, when you are sick, when we recover from any muscular tears, which is what we do when we resistance train, we ask our immune system to be able to help that recovery. When you are sick, your body will prioritize, when you're sick and if you train, your body will prioritize muscular recovery over immune defense, which means that it's going to take longer for your body to actually recover from the sickness that you have, cold, flu, otherwise, than it will to be able if you just had a rest day. So, roundabout way of saying, if you are sick to the point where you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, my throat, my body, everything's feeling a bit, please rest. Rest. If you are sick to the point where you called in for sick for work, rest and have another day of rest and then jump back into it. We want to make sure that your body is able to recover from the damage that we're doing, and no one wants to be sick for longer. Same is said with holidays. So a few of us beautiful jug fit peoples have all been away in the last couple of weeks, and there's been some epic holidays going on. I've seen trips to Europe, to Bali. I've had the fortunate time to be able to go and see family down south, and holidays are a really important part of resetting our stresses in our systems. That being said, usually the lead up to a holiday means that there's a million different things happening and you're running at like a million miles an hour to be able to make that happen. So what we tend to see is that we're pushing, we feel okay, and then you rest and you stop and your immune system collapses. And it collapses not because it's not strong enough to be able to withstand all the things, but because you've pushed it to the absolute limit and then you've stopped. We've been pushing and filling that cup far too full to then get to the point of full nervous system collapse. Now, if we honor our body, if we honor our rest periods, if we honor our time between our training and we start to mitigate stress, that's mind, body, soul stresses, things in our environment, things that are happening emotionally, stresses that we're physically putting on our body like training, this can all give a different gateway to making sure that you don't go into system collapse every time you take a break. I can speak to this personally because this was my life for the longest time. I would push, and every single time we went away, I would end up with the flu, or I would get a bout of whatever was going around, gastro, that sort of side of things, and end up spending the majority of our holiday in a hotel room. So when we make sure that we're giving time and space to both, and sometimes that can be easier said than done, especially when you've got a lot of things going on in your life. Now, when we start new jobs, when we start new training programs, when we start new focuses, we want to give all the effort that we possibly can into absolutely everything that we're doing. Because everyone in this JugFit fam are beautiful high achievers. We want to give the creme de la creme of our best amount of energy that we possibly can. But high achievers also come with that all or nothing mentality. That's why we talk about balance. That's why we talk about finding that middle ground. How do we slowly but surely achieve the things that we want to achieve, but also from a place of being able to reset our nervous system so we don't go into system collapse when we do eventually rest? Resting is such a different discipline. Now, there is so much to be said in discipline in terms of honoring your body and pulling back. When we're high achievers, we want to do all the things. And if we're not doing all the things, which training tends to sit at that top sort of level, it doesn't feel like anything's happening. But we have so many other things that we can focus on. Training is one tiny piece of the puzzle. And I've been using the analogy of building a house a lot lately. So when we build a house, we need plans, we need framework, and we need things to actually build the house with. When we look at your whole journey, that's the plan. When we look at your training, it's your framework. We start to put things together. But your nutrition is all the materials we need to be able to make that happen. So when things are feeling like you're not doing enough, when you need to rest, focus on what you can control. How is your food? Have you been supporting your body to be able to actually recover what it's going through? Have you been honoring your rest? Have you been making sure that you've got enough sleep? Sleep is such a huge, easy, free thing that we have an abundance of access to, but generally it's something we put on the lower end of the list. You know, when we look at your nutrition, we can look at your meal timings. Are you actually eating? And again, discipline. You might not feel like eating because you feel a bit blah, which is so understandable, but the discipline comes from knowing that you need to eat to support your body. There's the things that we lean into: soups, smoothies, slow cookers. We keep as much vitamins and minerals in with our nutrient density as we possibly can as well. Love a good slow cooker, and for soups in particular, you chuck everything in. When you steam vegetables, we tend to lose a lot of the micronutrients because this water actually ends up with the micronutrients in it, and we don't tend to drink the water. But when you cook a slow cooker or a soup, all your ingredients and all the nutrients in it stays within the meal itself. I also tend to lean towards those meals because they're warm for the soul, and we actually have scientific data to prove that soups actually help the body recover faster, not just from their vitamin, minerals, nutrient density component, but from the psychological effect of having a warm bowl of food in front of you and the calming effect that it brings onto our nervous system, which, as we're talking about, lowers stress levels and helps your body recover a hell of a lot quicker. So again, method to the madness. Steph, I don't feel like eating. I've been sick. So fine. Pick 3 things. Smoothies for breakfast, slow cookers for lunch, soups for dinner. Make a big batch of it and just eat on schedule. It might mean that you have your smoothie and it might take you an hour to be able to have it, but that nutrient still went into your body and we still supported your body towards your goals, not of what's just happening now, but in the future. And in saying that, goals aside, you've supported your body into health. And speaking for myself, whenever I'm sick, I want to be not sick as quickly as I possibly can, and I will do whatever it takes to be able to get to that point. Same with injuries, which sits in the same sort of category. So injuries, I have a big belief, it's the same belief that we've built the whole of JugFit on, that we want to prehab before we have to rehab. We want to prevent injuries before they happen so that we don't have to recover from them afterwards. Now, treating your body like it's always sick is a great way to be able to support your body into health. So the things that you would do anything to not feel sick anymore, is the same things that you should be doing on the day-to-day to make sure that we don't get sick in the future. Similarly with injuries. Whenever we have an injury, we give everything to it. You know, I've had a lot of conversations this week with beautiful ladies that have had unfortunately stepped into injury, and that includes myself. And I've learned a lot from that as well very quickly. I let a lot of my processes go. I wasn't taking the supplementation that I know helps to prevent my injuries. I wasn't prioritizing my sleep. I wasn't prioritizing making sure that I was actually stretching after a training session or warming up beforehand. That being said as well, when we prescribe your programs, your warm-ups or your pre-activation for your training session is generic to the movement patterns that are in your training session. So if there's something that you know that is breaking down within your body, or an injury that may be showing itself, please let us know, because then we can customize them a little bit more. But it also takes a level of self-responsibility for you to be able to work with your coach and let us know how things are feeling within your body. Because although we have an abundance of education that we want to share with you all, you know your body, you know how it feels, and you know the things that you can do that sometimes feel a little better than others. And they can be slight tweaks. For me, I know when I squat or I deadlift, I have to activate, pardon me, I have to activate my adductors, which is the inside of my quads. You've probably heard adductor or seen it in your exercise programs from things like your abduction machine, which is when you push your legs out to the side, or your adduction machine where you push them in together. For anyone that's ever used the adduction machine, you'll feel it straight away up through the inside of your thighs, all the way up into the hips and the pelvis. Now, for me, that's an area that breaks down. It therefore becomes a non-negotiable when I do any of my lower body-based movements, because I want to prevent the injuries that I've had in the past and unfortunately I've had to learn from. Recreational things can bring in injuries that we don't even think of either. Again, using myself as an example, I have been snowboarding in the last couple of weeks and I'm still learning how to do it. I'm not the most coordinated person in the whole wide world, but I'll give it a damn good go. And I hit the ground really hard and I hit it on my elbow, which ricocheted into my shoulder and jarred all the way through my neck. Last Friday, I actually couldn't swivel my head completely, and I'm still in a little bit of tightness and pain. But the things that I've implemented straight away to be able to make sure that I could recover from the inside out was ensuring that I stepped straight back into making sure that I hit my protein macronutrient and allowing recovery. I also invested in a collagen supplementation, which I had let lapse, to help with the recovery on the inside, and a magnesium base as well. These have now become a non-negotiable a part of my day-to-day practices to make sure that I am recovering at an optimal level as much as I possibly can. Same with being able to tweak your exercises. We hope to educate you in movement patterns that you do throughout these exercises. So it means that if something like this shows up and you want to still come into the gym and train tomorrow, for example, you've hurt your neck, what else can you be doing? So if we've hurt our upper body, how about a lower body day? Do we need to tweak a few things for your lower body day? Do we need to be mindful of where your body is in space? That again comes with mind-muscle connections. If you do want to train an area that you have a slight injury to, then it's definitely something you need to speak to your coach with, because then that way we can help to make educated decisions with you, collabing together as to what is the right thing for your body as well. Things that we also step into when we have injury is generally there's a heightened level of inflammation within the body. So we want to lower that level of inflammation as quickly as we possibly can. And there's so many different ways that we're able to do that. Your food is a really big part of it. Things like caffeine, sugar, and alcohol are all major inflammatory. They promote major inflammatory responses within the body. And alcohol in particular has no benefit within the body. It actually stops all recovery processes until your body can metabolize and flush alcohol out. So if you are going through injury or illness at the moment, please try to pull back on those few different things. If you're talking about sugars, we're talking about refined sugars and an abundance of. If you're having a piece of chocolate or a little bit of ice cream every night, it's not going to be the biggest deal in the world. But I'd probably refrain from having the whole big, ginormous freak shake extravaganza type of sugars, especially during this time. Just let your body recover from things that are happening and then step straight back into it. The same with your fruits and vegetables. There are different fruits and vegetables that actually promote healing properties within the body and have anti-inflammatory responses. Things like ginger and turmeric are really easy ones to be able to add in as part of your day-to-day, or in particular, we can put it all together. Pick a soup or a slow cooker that includes those ingredients. Do a little bit of self-leadership and a bit of research. I literally, if I step into something that I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel quite right, how do I help to support my body? I need low inflammatory type foods. Google it. We have this abundance of education on the internet. What is a low inflammatory type food? How do foods help me recover? How do I strengthen my immune system? And go on a wild goose chase of all the different things that you could implement as part of your day-to-day. Foods are great building blocks to be able to help our body recover. They're also things that we shouldn't be scared of. You might even find a recipe that you really, really, really enjoy. And things don't have to be long and complicated. If you're feeling unwell, if you have an injury, then how do we step into it as easy as possible? Yesterday, I shared my easy vegetable soup recipe, which is such a go to whenever I'm feeling under the weather or I just need a whole lot more vitamins and minerals into my life. I also suggested the way to be able to impact and heighten the level of protein within it as well. It's literally some bags of pre-done bone broth that you can get from Coles and Woolworths, veggies in a soup mix that are already chopped up, and then if you want to add in an extra bout of protein, you can grab a whole roasted chicken, pull it all apart, chuck it all in, pop it on the stove for 10 minutes, and you're good to go. That's a wholesome meal that's going to help to nourish your body from the inside out, that's going to make the biggest batch that will cover you definitely for a fair few days afterwards. Cook once, eat a million times, and make sure that you're supporting yourself from the inside out. We can always tweak things like that and add a little bit more of garlic. Garlic is a great way to be able to help with the immune system, the same with helping with anti-inflammatories within the body. Things like broccoli as well help to be able to bring the levels down too. They have some great, they're called, I'm going to butcher this, curvaceous vegetables. There's things like your broccoli and your cauliflower or your leafy greens. I always get that name wrong, and I know I did just then too, but I will find out the pronunciation, and it's something I need to learn from. But different ways to be able to add that in. Now, when we feel not great, when we're injured, it's also so vitally important that we step into that space as well. So a few things to summarize before I jump onto a couple of particular questions we've been asked for this week as well. Even if you're sick, even if you're injured, you can still control what you can control. And it might not be training, which is so fine, but what else can you be doing? Can you be spending time in the sun to help with your vitamin D levels and your natural immune system? Can you be prioritizing your food? Can you be prioritizing rest and space for the time that you would usually book in your training session? How do we redistribute that time so you're still investing the time within yourself and investing not only in your own personal development, but on your overall health as well? There are so many different things we can do. If you're not too sure where to go from, talk to us. Whether that is directly to us via Voxer, or whether it's just reaching out through this space, we are always, always happy to be able to help. Let us know what's going on and see how we can help to support you through that. Now, I've had a couple of particular questions on my posts from a couple of lovely ladies. So one of them was if there is a big loss in not stretching down or stretching or cooling down after a session. So I believe that stretching and cooling down is particular to the person, and it depends on how your recovery is. There is actually a decent bit of data that's come out recently about the fact that static stretching doesn't actually hold a whole lot of benefit within the body. I definitely would suggest something like foam rolling first. So something like foam rolling is like kneading bread before you actually roll it out. So we tend to loosen a few of the muscles that may be tight, help with the recovery process. If you have some muscle fibers that have only just started to kind of tear apart, then it can completely tear them apart, basically finish the job from the training that you've done, and then go into a static stretch after that. If you are completely pressed for time and you are feeling amazing, your recovery is really high, it might be focusing on recovery from another standpoint. For me, some days I don't have time to be able to stretch because I'd rather give that time to finishing my training session or having a shower. I also prioritize eating after my training session over stretching. Stretching is one of the things that can be done pretty much anywhere at any time. There is a benefit to resetting your nervous system. So things like diaphragmatic breathing, we tend to put into your training programs if we know that you're in quite a high level of stress within your environment naturally. There's a lot of benefit to resetting your nervous system, but is that particularly stretching? Not necessarily. There's a lot of different levels when we talk about training in terms of what an optimal level is, what an ideal level is, and then there's, your lowest hanging fruits. So some days you might have more time and ample space to be able to give a full stretching and recovery routine after your training session, and some days you might be pressing it just to get your training in. So I would definitely suggest investing in your recovery outside of the gym if stretching is not something that you're able to do, and really recovering from the inside out. Especially if you do have injuries. Sometimes an injury like what I've done can be an overstretch of the muscle. So stretching it more might not actually be helping. Leaving it alone, giving it a little bit of time to rest and recover, and investing in that recovery from another perspective is definitely going to be a little bit more worthwhile for your time. One of the other questions that we had is a tip for sweet cravings. Oh, I love this question. All right. So sweets, same thing as I just touched on with refined sugars. So sugars, I'm guessing sweets like lollies, chocolates, like that sort of side of things. So sweet food, sugars in particular, promote a craving within the body. So it's lack of energy that generally starts to show up for us. So if you have not been eating enough actual food to help to promote the rest of the energy you need for your day, if you haven't been sleeping very well, we can start to see an influx of heightened level of sugar cravings. And it's not because you necessarily want sugar, it's because your body is craving energy. And the easiest way, the quickest way to get energy in is refined sugar. Now, just like the saying goes, that the muscle that gets trained as the muscle gets fed, we will feed your craving if you give into it, which is a little bit of a double-edged sword. So with sweets, the more you give your body, and I always love using the example of, like, I know I have, like, you have those days where nothing is sweet enough. You could eat the whole of aisle 4 and nothing would be sweet enough. This is because as soon as we put sweets into your body, your gut microbiome, or the inside of your stomach lining, actually has neurons on the insides. So neurons are our little cells that actually sit as part of our brain. So when we give sugar to the body goes, yeah, I really like this. I want more. And your stomach speaks to your brain, and your brain says, I want more. I want more. And it's all that keeps going on repeat, on repeat, on repeat until you give into it. Now we keep giving in, then we're going to get to a point where things just aren't sweet enough. But if we pull back and we stop and we swap the sweets around, so if you have a sweet craving, you might substitute with something that actually satiates you. It might not satisfy that craving, but we kind of don't want to satisfy that craving. We don't want to give in to it. So we have a meal instead. And you can have something sweet that's attached to it. Something like fruit is a really great way. Fructose doesn't promote the same cravings within the body as what artificial sweeteners and actual sugars do within the body as well. Even things like natural sweeteners, so something with like honey on it, is going to give a different effect to the body than giving in to chocolate. Now, you're like, yeah, sure, Steph, that sounds great. That's not going to happen. This is where your meal timings come in. If we are satiated throughout the day, if you have eaten enough food regularly to start to find your lines between hunger and famished, generally we want to eat a meal with at least 30 to 50 grams of protein macronutrient 3 to 5 times a day, every 3 to 5 hours apart. Now, if we adhere to that, protein is extremely satiating, which means it's going to fill you up and it's not going to make you very hungry. It also is a great benefit to make sure to help to keep those cravings at bay, or help to keep snacking at bay as well, especially if you're finding yourself reaching. Now, if you have implemented that and you're eating continuous meals or throughout the day, and you're making sure that your body is constantly satiated, you've constantly got that energy that it needs to perform at the level it needs to, but you're still getting these huge cravings, or you find yourself like fridge picking, then the question is, do I actually want this? Or does it just sound good? Or the other one is, am I just bored? Because if we're bored, if we're overtired, the body's going to look for things that give us an endorphin rush. And food generally is that endorphin rush. It's that momentary, ooh, this tastes really good, but then it's done. And then you go looking for more. So then your singular, chocolate bar is not enough. And all of a sudden you've eaten the chocolate bar and the one you had for tomorrow and the ice cream in the fridge. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there going, what the hell did I just do? So meal timing is a really big important part of that, making sure that we are adhering to that meal timing. And again, discipline more than motivation. Motivation is so fleeting. It'll be there for a second and then it'll be gone. But discipline is, well, if I want something to change in order to be different, I have to do different things. And I know that right now this seems a little bit tricky to be able to navigate, but we just take it one day at a time. We take it one meal at a time. We take it one possibility at a time. I still definitely think that if you are a sugar type of person, you have a sweet tooth like me, that it is implemented in as part of your day. I have ice cream and chocolate every single day of the week. I don't have it with every single meal, but I have it every day of the week. For me, those cravings tend to show up after dinner. I'm a dessert sort of person, and I love me the thickest, darkest chocolate cake you can possibly think of. So for me personally, this is something that I've had to navigate, and regularly eating is a really, really big part of that. I know that I can get to about 3 hours and start to feel my hunger cues. And hunger cues feel different for everybody. So it's really investigating within yourself what that feels like for you. For me, hunger cues, not all the time, are tummy rumbles. I actually very rarely get tummy rumbles. It's brain fog. My brain starts to fall out. I can't really get my words together. I start to lack emotional regulation. I get hangry. I start to shake. Like, it's actual physical things that happen within my body, headaches, that sort of side of things as well. So implementing in a regular eating routine, and then not only just implementing that in, but still giving myself something sweet, it's something I look forward to. I actually really like from ASN, they do a protein custard called Pro Treat, and I get the chocolate flavor and I make a serve of that every night. It's a WPI based protein, which means it's a whey-protein isolate, and it releases, it's the last thing I have in my day. So it releases as I'm relaxing, sleeping, and helps with the recovery process. On top of the chocolate custard, essentially, I put ice cream, and at the moment I'm having 2 squares of chocolate as well, because I like to eat my custard, my ice cream, and then suck on a piece of chocolate afterwards and really, really enjoy it. That's the other side of cravings as well, is how often do you actually enjoy the food that you're eating? Or is it something you just do because you crave it? I can eat a chocolate bar in 2.3 seconds flat. But whether you actually enjoy that and tasted the chocolate that was happening during that time period, or whether it was just a thing that you moved on from. Because if it was just a thing that you ate and you moved on from, then how else can we be eating that? Could we just be eating a meal and moving on from it? We want something sweet. Amazing. Can we get some yogurt, put a little bit of chocolate protein in it, swirl it up, pop it on some pancakes or French toast or something along those lines with a drizzle of Nutella on top. Add a whole bunch of fruit, and I promise you're going to get your sweet cravings, and you're going to be so much more satiated because of it. Even things like artificial sweeteners will give you the same sort of stimulation within your system as if you just had sugar. It's going to promote that cravings more and more. So again, a little bit of a roundabout chat, but numb and just with sweet cravings, if you give in to them, not that you give in to them, if you always, that's my language, if you always give in to them, you're going to promote the body as it's a habit. So basically, if I give this stimulation from my stomach to my brain, she's going to eat that. And then it's going to happen again and again and again, because your body wants that dopamine. It wants that adrenaline rush. It wants the energy input. But if you're like, you know what, every time that I get this sweet craving, I'm going to eat my next meal. Or better yet, you've pre-planned everything in advance, and breakfast happens. First meal of the day, doesn't have to be breakfast. First meal of the day happens at 8 a.m. Second meal of the day happens at 12. The one after that happens at 4. Then we eat again at 8. And then that's it. We're done for the day. You might even have your meal at 8 and have the dessert that goes with it. Or I'm a big fan of lunch dessert. When we have sugar, it's a really increased level of energy. So what are you going to do with that energy? So if you want to indulge in something a little sweeter, go for it. But then use the energy for good. Have it as your pre-workout, because then it's going to become the energy that you use for your training session going into that as well. If you're like me and you prefer something a little sweeter at nighttime, then how does that sweetness at nighttime give you what you're looking for and give you some sort of benefit as well? Or if you are going to step into something super sweet, you might save it for a day. go out for breakfast pancakes or something that's different than what you are doing at home for this standpoint. Be present with it, be mindful with what you're having, and then step from there as well. Actionable steps that you can take with sweet cravings: identify your cravings in the time of the day that they come up. If it's always that time of the day, let's have a look at other things. Could it be energy? For example, if you're always getting a sweet craving at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, then where was the energy from the start of the day? Because 3 o'clock in the afternoon, 4 o'clock in the afternoon starts that melatonin rise for our body to go to sleep once the sun sets around 6. So your body's going to get more and more tired. This happens naturally. And we can either lean into it if we have time and space and we recover a little bit, or we actually put things in place to detriment and stop our sleep cycle. Generally, 3 or 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I see a lot of people, not just lovely ladies, people lean into caffeine because they're starting to feel tired, or they lean into sugar because they're starting to feel tired. Now, this is a natural body response. For me, I plan my lunch to be between 2:30 and 3 o'clock. So it means that I eat a full meal at that point. Now, if I'm doing other things, it's an eat and move on. So I'm busy and I'm in the middle of things happening. I can't think about it again. Or if I'm not at home, then I'm taking the food with me and I have it pre-done. Food is expensive. Buying meals out all the time is expensive. You can use that to not only just save a little bit of dosh, but help with those cravings that show up for you as well, and give the energy that you need throughout the rest of your day to keep you going until your next meal. For me, yesterday, for example, lunch was actually 4 o'clock and then I had dinner at 8. So I still ate every 3 to 5 hours. It was just a little later in the day because my day was pushed out a little later. That was the time that I had for breaks. I schedule my day, including the times that I'm going to be eating, because it looks different on different days, but I need to make sure that I eat. And it's something I've been able to learn from as well, from personal experience. I believe that macro tracking has a massive power within our lives to make sure that we're adherent to the goals that we want to achieve. If we're asking for so much from our bodies, which we do all day, every day, how do we give back a little bit? And making sure you eat enough food is a really big part of that. It also helps to satisfy your cravings. It helps from every single part of your body from the inside out. Injury prevention, illness prevention, cravings, hair, skin, nails, muscle mass, bloating, stuff like your digestion, how often you go to the toilet. All of that is impacted by how frequently and consistently you can get good quality food into your body. So we may sound like broken records. Have you focused on your protein? Have you tracked your macros? Have you eaten today? But they're really important questions to be able to ask yourself as well. And they, again, are the lowest hanging fruit. Your nutrition and making sure you support your body should always be your top priority. And then training comes after that. Because training is damage, training is stress, but nutrition is all of the fundamentals that we need to be able to support our body from every way, shape, or form. And just like that, that's another Wednesday Q&A done. So I hope that I answered some of the questions that you guys had. I'm really, really grateful for the beautiful ladies that have submitted a few questions today or that have chatted to me this week about a few different things. I will upload our recording and pop it on YouTube like I normally do so that you can watch and listen to these back. As always, the hashtag Q&A in our hashtag QA in our Facebook group. So if you are looking for past recordings as well, you can just search the hashtag and they will all pop up. And I look forward to chatting to you all soon.